Hello, everyone, and thank you for your patience while I got through those technical difficulties. There were a few people waiting in the other stream. So, what happened was it was scheduled as mobile, like on the phone. And then when I tried to make the new one, then it's scheduled for streaming software instead of the webcam. So, this is the real one. I believe I have updated the various discords. I see there are a few of us. So thank you to those who are tuning in. It's very good to have you. So I posted a poll earlier. Hey, Juicio. Hi, Gina. It's good to have you both. Um, I was going through some pink letter stuff earlier today, and I was like, that would be a fun thing to talk about, right? Um, because I have a couple of explanations that I think that I haven't heard gone over in the detail, or in the way that I conceptualize them, but they're not really what I would say is enough for a full theory video. So I thought this would be a good way to do it. Hello, friends, and welcome. It's really good to have you here. Um, so before we get started, we might wait for a few more folks to kind of trickle in. Let's see. So if you have any pink letter ideas, feel free to put them in the chat. Obviously there are the original theories, and obviously the question of who wrote the pink letter was first introduced by Preston Jacobs. So of course, shout out to Preston Jacobs. Oh, goodness. All right. Thank you, Juicio. Steve Dorries is here. This is fantastic. And Nick Grimes, it's so great to have you all. Yeah, we'll give it just a few more minutes. I'm wondering if there's anything I can fill you all in on Tom style. In case you weren't here for the last stream, Con of Thrones was canceled. So obviously I will not be doing the panel there in Orlando. However, we should be able to stream the panel that I had intended to do. We could do that here on YouTube. So, the material that Tom and Zach and Random Internet Guy and I had prepared will not go unheard. Unpublished is perhaps a better way to put it. It won't go to waste. Yeah, Nick, it's great to have you. Okay, Rugaru says, with the Theon Wins chapter, is there a chronological disconnect between the POVs at the Wall and Winterfell? George has said that the chronology doesn't always line up, that something might be happening sooner or later, but it's my understanding that they're pretty close together. Well, Gina, unfortunately, I also I'm not that far from Orlando. But the weather in Florida is terrible in August, and I will not be sorry to miss the August Orlando weather. Yeah. So that's actually one of the. I guess we'll just get into the pink letter stuff. One of the reasons that people believe that the pink letter was not written by Ramsay, or does not contain the truth, is that one of the core assertions is that Stannis is dead, and other than the letter, we have no reason to believe that Stannis is dead. And in one of the preview chapters, we see Stannis very much alive, and that was what Rougarou was asking about, the Theon Wins chapter, where we see him, kind of chained to the wall, and Stannis is talking to him. Obviously Stannis isn't dead. So one explanation could be that everything is true and Stannis is dead, and that Jon chapter at the end of Dance took place after this Winds preview chapter. And given that Feast and Dance, you can line them up chronologically mostly, but Feast was published first. It's possible. But we were having Stannis chapters sort of, up through the end. Well, they weren't Stannis. We were seeing Stannis, through Asha, up through the end of Dance. So I think it's pretty safe to say that the contents of the letter, we shouldn't take at face value. One of the other core elements of the letter that people like to, base their theories upon and kind of focus on and dissect is the fact that it names multiple characters by descriptors. But the only one who's named by name is Mance Rayder, and that this could be a clue or a hint as to who wrote the letter. It leads a lot of people to believe that Mance himself wrote the letter, that maybe perhaps he was able to, he spent enough time observing Ramsay and he was able to sneak in and get some of the wax. And obviously, he's intelligent. He was raised on the wall, presumably literate. So it's possible. But as others have pointed out, the effect that the letter had was Jon got angry and got stabbed. And as far as the contents of the letter, if Mance had wanted Jon to come down from the wall and rescue him, there are other things he could have said that maybe wouldn't have endangered everybody. And the other thing was, Mance didn't want the wildlings being conscripted to fight on Stannis' behalf. So in a way, it's a little curious, that if that was what if Mance didn't want the wildlings to be fighting in the South when he left, why would he write a letter to Jon that would encourage him now to bring the wildlings south to fight? Although there is certainly some evidence for it, right? And Preston's theory builds on the idea that Tormund Giantsbane says that he can't read, but then shortly afterwards said something about black as Maester's ink, which might indicate that, that he's more literate than he's letting on, or that this might have been a signal actually from Mance to Tormund. And that's also certainly possible. Likewise, G. Filmer just pointed out, and this was also in the poll, that some people theorize that Stannis wrote the letter. And if Stannis needed the reinforcements, if he thought maybe he could get Jon to defect and become Lord of Winterfell like Stannis initially intended, certainly logistically, I suppose, and in terms of end goals, it could work. But I like Alt Shift X's thoughts and explanations on that one, that Stannis, when we first see Stannis at the beginning of Clash, and the Maester's writing a letter, and Stannis corrects him multiple times. He says, just call Robert my brother. He wasn't my beloved brother. I didn't, he wasn't beloved to me. And then they're talking about Jaime, and he says, you have to call him Sir Jaime. He's like, he may be a kingslayer, but he's still a knight. That Stannis is very correct in his communication. It seems almost compulsive. And so for Stannis to write a letter like this, either we're looking at an extreme shift in his character, or I would say perhaps more likely Stannis didn't write it. And again, like when we're thinking about the things that the letter is asking for, Stannis wouldn't have any use necessarily for the baby. I mean, I suppose he could if he's wanting to do, a blood sacrifice to R'hllor. But what would Stannis want with Reek? He already has Theon. And, Stannis has, Arya has already been recovered. Because the letter says, bring me my bride back, bring me my Reek. Manse is in a cage. I've skinned the Spear Wives. So the other piece of evidence that leads people to believe Ramsay didn't write it, the handwriting is different, and the letter itself is different. It didn't come with skin attached. And as Bet pointed out, it had a pink smear and no sigil. So actually what I'm going to do, I have two theories, but I'm going to take a peek through the comments first and perhaps go over what you all might think to build a little suspense and not give away the horse farm, not give away the surprise. All right, let's see. All right. A Theory of Ice and Fire says, perhaps Wyman Manderley. And that would certainly be interesting. Wyman is the kind of person who would write a letter like that. And he was aware of, who Reek was. My question would be, what would Wyman want with the baby and Val? And why would Wyman want Arya brought back to Winterfell? Presumably, Wyman is ostensibly siding with Stannis for the time being. Obviously, Wyman Manderley has his own agenda with Rickon and Davos, but Davos is Stannis's hand, and Wyman Manderley said, I will kneel to Stannis if you, Davos, go to Skagos and recover Rickon for me. So he does have certainly the capacity to write a letter like that. It certainly fits his character more than it does Stannis, but I don't see, again, what he would stand to gain if he were to receive everything in the letter, if that makes sense. Yeah, so Nick Grimes says, it's been a bit since I looked into the pink letter. I don't understand why Manse would need to pretend to write like Ramsay to get the letter out. So part of, and please, everybody, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. Part of Preston's theory is that Jon wasn't necessarily supposed to understand everything that was in the letter, that it was actually a message to Tormund, and it was coded, sort of. So in that way, writing, if Manse had just written a letter to Jon and signed it Mance Raider, it would have been obvious to Jon, what was going. I mean, it would have been a letter to Jon. So let's see. He knew. Okay, let's see. I'm not sure who I think wrote it. I'm just sure Ramsay didn't. That was Taco. Good to have you here, Taco. Elaborate prank by Bloodraven, who knew that Jon would zombify through whatever means Gurm decided to use. If possible. And people use that same line of thinking that perhaps it was Melisandre. And I could see either. I haven't really considered the Bloodraven angle. I can talk briefly about Melisandre, and here I'm just going to be borrowing talking points again from Alt-Shift-X, but and adding some of my own. Melisandre, to a degree, believes in her own hype, or at least pretends to. Rather, she half believes her own hype, and she half, puts on the facade of confidence. But either way, the way that she convinces people to do things is with her mystical woo-woo lighting people on fire thing. We have not seen her manipulate in such a way. The other thing is, at this point, she doesn't know that she can resurrect Jon. Presumably all of the red priests and priestesses are taught this, the fiery kiss, or the way it's described. That Thoros says it was kind of standard practice. That's why he gave the kiss to Beric Dondarrion, and he was surprised when it brought Beric back to life. And also Melisandre was kind of warning Jon throughout, that there was danger, and to stay away, to do something different. And so if it could be like a reverse psychology thing, that Melisandre knew that Jon wasn't going to listen to her. And so she kind of circumvented all of this and sent the letter because she needed him to die. And she could do that kind of 3D chess. But I believe at her heart, she is, the religious zealot that she presents herself as. She may not be as powerful as she pretends to be, certainly not as good at understanding her visions, but she believes in R'hllor. So let's see. I'm gonna try to make sure I don't miss anything. I remember when I first heard it wasn't written by Ramsay, my first thought was Stannis. He knew about Manse. Did Stannis know about Manse? See, I was under the impression Melisandre had kept that from him. I thought that might be the one piece of information that Stannis didn't have. Although, if Melisandre truly believes that Stannis is Azor Ahai, she wouldn't have kept that information from him. We've covered Stannis. So, Bet, I won't forget your question about the pink smear and the sigil. So, obviously, anybody who's not a Bolton or not the Bolton's maester isn't going to have the stamp on hand for the wax. So, that's easily explained if any of our answers are not Ramsay and not Roose. At some point, maybe in the Winds chapter, doesn't Stannis tell the guy crushing on Asha that he may hear rumors of his death? Oh, okay. So, full disclosure, I have not read all of the preview chapters, which maybe I should if I'm going to do a live stream about the pink letter. So if somebody wants to fact check that and check me, I always love being corrected. Thank you for the super chat. This is my first ever super chat. Thank you, Aaron. Aaron says, first time catching you in a while and saw this icon lit up. Congrats and keep up the good work. Thank you so much. It really means a lot. Thank you, Aaron. So let's Um, I'm not. I am going to be looking at the regular chat too. Oh goodness, you guys are really into it. I'm glad to see you here for the pink letter. Yeah. So if somebody wants to look into that preview chapter question, yeah. Thank you, G. Filmer. I was also under the impression Stannis didn't know about Manse. It would have to be someone at or outside Winterfell, as they would be the only ones who know of Reek. Yes. So, I mean, hypothetically, Melisandre could know about Reek, and you could make the argument that Bloodraven would know about Reek, especially after the wedding in the Godswood, that Bloodraven would have had a front row seat for that. But I prefer not to rely too heavily on the magical answers, if that makes sense. Yeah, so Squisher King says, could have been done by Ramsay or Manse in haste. In my opinion, though, it's because the Bolton Maester is with Stannis currently. That could be.